We're live, and hopefully Justin Hess is going to be first in for day number 14 in a row, and he is. And he is, guys. Welcome to episode 39. All the days generally merge into every other day at the moment, but we're almost at lovely 40. Lovely to see all of your smiling faces. And tonight we actually have someone by absolute popular demand. I have to say that that very few people want to see somebody other than me so much on my own show. But if they did, it would be Brad Hickey. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, or giving up your evening for us. And of course, Brad Hickey, aka Brash Higgins.
Brash Higgins. Hey everybody.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing being able to have a glass of wine with so many different people.
Yeah, well that's it. We were just describing sort of how many people we are. So actually to prove it to Brad, what are you guys drinking at home right now? That's what we want to know. How was your Monday and what are you drinking at home right now? Because we know it was Monday, we know you're drinking, and that's okay with us. It was Monday for us. We had a very productive Monday, didn't we, Noah?
Oh yeah.
We had an amazingly productive Monday. I was very happy with today's Monday. To top it all off with, this is just too good.
What'd you guys get done today?
We for those who are on Twitch, we redid our Twitch profile. We realised that's actually a thing, and I don't know. We looked at things like what we're sending out to people on sort of Campaign Monitor, which is our little EDM platform, and social media-y things, and planning some new releases next week, which is really interesting, and just changing up some of the designer stuff. But enough of me. I'm not important. You're immensely more important. You've just poured into some black glasses, so...
I did. I thought we'd get going.
Get going on some blind tasting.
I've had a long drive up from McLaren Vale, so I'm ready for a glass of wine.
Wait, from where in Vale?
McLaren.
Oh, McLaren Vale. I thought you said the Clare and Vale, because you know how people in Clare Valley are like they live in the Clare. You know that's the thing in Adelaide. It's like we're from the Clare. You're actually from Clare Valley. It's not the Clare. I think there's other Clares around. But all right.
We're from McVale.
Yeah.
That's how my autocorrect constantly stymies me.
All right, we're pulling Corky out.
So yeah, we thought we'd start real fast with something. So I brought a couple of wines that I wanted to share with you.
It smells absolutely amazing. It's
jumping right out of the glass, isn't it?
Yeah, this is... Oh, yep, sorry, I'm going to flip comments down. Noah's going to let everyone know what that wine was to see whether or not I mean, you've played options before, Brad?
Yeah, but I'm shocking at it, so...
Yeah, but I mean, it's your wine, so if you're
I quite often tell you the wine before I even ask the first question. I'm like, I get really excited, you know? I'm like, this is... Oh, shit.
Oh, this is a really great Austrian... Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, do you have to start Old World, New World? Are there different starts, you know? Is it white?
Yeah, I know. Like, if it's in a black glass, is it red or white? You know,
let's try that one. Let's do that one.
I think it's white.
Okay, you're right.
I'm right. Okay.
But in some circles, you could see that it might be a red.
Totally, yeah. Like a lean, sort of reductive style red. Maybe like a Trousseau or a really lean Syrah. Like have you seen like a lot of poolside from not poolside from Tom Shop?
Sure.
That has these sort of similar vibes as well.
Yeah.
But no, it feels white. And it feels old world.
It almost has a bit of a stemmy quality to it. Like that's if I was looking at this in a black glass, that's where I could get thrown off thinking this was like a whole bunch of Pinot. I mean, I know it's not, but that's the kind of cool thing about the black glasses. You don't really know exactly what's going on.
Honestly, we've never used these until like the last 39 days. We actually found them in storage. We're like, oh yeah, that'll be dope. We're just gonna put that on.
Yeah, the Riedel ones are exorbitant. So I think most people are like, just use duct tape.
That's awesome. We're gonna bootstrap this. We're gonna turn all of our other glass in a black glasses.
This episode brought to you by.
Yeah, that's right.
The duct tape family.
3M.
I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah. All right, so it's white wine.
All right, so Old World, New World. That'll be our first one. You've checked in with the Old World.
I've checked in with Old World. This is a remarkable and palate weight shape. This is incredible.
That really just kind of comes right in, doesn't it?
But it's got a residual sweetness. Initially, it's got I'm not sure if it's bone dry, but it definitely has hella acid to it.
Yep.
It is. Yeah, no, you're very true. It is clipped. It's linear. It's, really poignant.
It's really interesting. I think, it's New World.
Yeah,
right. Just to take the knife out. But, this is part of the fun, right?
Totally.
Is it from Australia, South Africa, or the Antarctic? Cool clap.
Yeah, wow. I'm gonna say it's Australian.
It's Australian. Although there will come a day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There will
The
come a
great
day.
Antarctic terroir.
I'm sure you guys aren't scoping it out already.
100% granite.
The world's finest Riesling. Are we thinking sort of WA, maybe kind of some of the cool kids down in WA, maybe one of the wilder Adelaide Hills people, or maybe even something over in Victoria, maybe Ballarat?
Yeah, right, okay. I think it's WA.
And I would think that just because
It has like WA, and I think it is Riesling. That's my sort of gut feeling.
Yeah.
And
Feels like
WA
Riesling has a bit of that sort of.
But it's the reduction that really gets me. I've not seen a lot of reduction on well, firstly, I haven't seen a hell of a lot of Victorian Riesling. That's if it is Riesling. I'm putting my bets in somewhere, right? But there's a really lovely fruit weight that I think has remarkable acidity, and it's this really interesting reduction. Or reduction is like a smoky quality that I see out of places like Franklin, really. That's why I think it's WA.
That's a really interesting. I like the way you went down that path, because it's an interesting. It's cool to see how your mind works when you think about, how do you deduce something.
Yeah.
It's actually from Ballarat.
Yeah, right.
Now, there's only a few producers in Ballarat that I know of that kind of make wines that are a bit this edgy. So we can go by producer now.
It's Riesling though?
Oh, first of all, is it Riesling? Is it Chardonnay? Or is it Pinot Gris?
It's Pinot Gris.
It's Chardonnay.
Bullshit.
It's totally true.
Bullshit.
Totally true. I talked with the winemaker last night, and they confirmed that in fact this is Chardonnay. It's a Chardonnay
This is so whack.
It's a Chardonnay that's aged on ullage for 12 months.
There's a rancio vibe here.
It's a wicked little Chardonnay from Ballarat, which is where Owen Lada is from. So this is
Totally.
This is this wine, in case you missed that, is Lada Vino.
Totally. Yeah, right.
So Owen Lada is family owns Eastern Peak in Ballarat, just west of Melbourne, and this is a really special wine that he made. I don't think he makes a lot of it now. It's kind of one of those wines that's so tricky because of the leaving things on ullage for up to 12 months. Weird stuff can happen, but this wine is. To me, I thought it was brilliant. I had to put the duct tape up
because
here,
you know that it's
got a lot of orange.
Yeah, he has like a really
wine.
I reckon that's a really smart move. He does an amazing Pinot Gris as well. He does utterly next level wines.
Yeah, there's a wine called Tranquillo, which is...
Yeah, that's the one I think I'm talking about, which is pretty next level.
Well, so the wines have badass sort of wine writer descriptors on the back, tells you everything you want, plus he's got some pretty straight, cool graphics that are very modern and really interesting. So I just wanted to start with that to get the ball rolling, because we swapped wine probably about 6 months ago. And this is one I've just been kind of ogling, going, I can't wait to open this, but so
That's right.
normally I usually buckle, but this was one that was kept in, sort of stayed in the box in the carton. So when they're in the carton, you don't always go there. You get the ones that you can see. So I forgot about it. So
I particularly like the fact that he's called it Jurassic Blanc.
yeah,
Obviously, a bit of an ode to the Jura style of winemaking, of course, and quite often will actually utilise Chardonnay as well. And I still miss Puff Daddy. I think we all miss Puff Daddy, Jacques Puffernet. He's amazing Jura creations.
Yep.
But this is actually you've done a similar style to this, haven't you?
Yeah, we had a wine called Bloom, which also has some of those same. It's a longer process. This is only 1 year and 3 months in tank.
Yours was significantly more.
Yeah, ours was over 8 years, the first one, and the second one was over 6.5 years. So again, that's even more, kind of insane to wait that long.
Yeah.
But we've been maybe doing our own label a little bit longer than Owen. I'm sure he'll probably have things like that are brewing and bubbling away. You know, he'll probably entertain us for the rest of his life. But yeah, this Jura style of Chardonnay or Sauvignon has really captivated me. And because they almost have this Riesling, almost sherry, Pinot-esque quality.
Yeah.
Super dry,
okay.
crackling, salty, nutty.
Let's see what's and it is
Lime.
nutty, but it's not oxidated at all.
No, it's really...
It's not showcasing any form of VA that I could possibly pick up. It is squeaky. This thing is squeaky clean.
He said that there's enough CO2 for all the wine geeks out there in the barrels because they're all on lees. He ferments it in barrel, and then as soon as it's done, he bungs it up, and then whatever CO2 is in there protects the wine until he takes it out. I asked him how does he know when it's time to put the bungs in. He said when the bungs stop exploding. So
we know that.
he's very, very, well, you never know. Winemakers are pretty cagey. So, but this is that kind of really wicked winemaking that shows you what you can do with Chardonnay. And in McLaren Vale, Chardonnay is not always perceived as, you know, the great sort of noble grape that Shiraz or Cabernet or Nirodavola or other new items. So we had a little bit of fun with Chardonnay, saying, well, maybe if we treat it this way, we can find something a little bit more compelling. And so Bloom, again, the next one for us will be probably, if it works, you know, because you never know until you open them, and you really can't just open them beforehand, because if you do, you can just spoil everything.
Yeah, because the whole like veil.
The veil and everything's in a vacuum. So at this stage, things have been locked down for 5 years. You're not going to just take a look. We turn our barrels on their side.
So it prevents you from,
it seals it. Well, it also slows down the oxygen because the bung is where most oxygen escapes. So that submerges it. Yeah, and then it just stops me from tasting it constantly when friends come over. Because
I was going to say I would really struggle to do that.
Anybody who visits, they're like, can we try it? I'm like, no, it's on its side. Sorry, I can't.
It's like us with Jarrah-aged whiskey. I mean, did I say that? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Right. So outside of this sort of style, and you know, you've entertained these styles, but you've been a right at the forefront of a few movements in Australian winemaking. Obviously, we ourselves utilise amphora, but I'm pretty confident you were the main protagonist behind the introduction of those particular amphora in Adelaide, right?
Yeah, definitely. We met John Bennett at Bennett McGill probably in 2010. And John has a great old pottery shed, as you know, just here in eastern Adelaide, and proposed this idea. I was getting ready to produce our first Nirodavola, and as a new kid to town, as someone who's overseas, just moved to McLaren Vale and was basically putting in a brand new grape variety, we wanted to do something special with it. So we visited Sicily and hung out and talked to the folks at Coast Winery, and saw their amphoras and how they kind of worked with Nero and how those wines were so elevated and lots of variation, but were really stunning. And came back to Adelaide and said, wouldn't it be nice, rather than importing these vessels, have somebody locally make them? And that was a really fun moment in winemaking, you know, when you're onto something new and you're thinking, wow, no one's done this. We can talk to the local potters, and they're showing me all these mangled coffee cups, and you're like, no, I need to.
No, I need it bigger.
And they can't fall over. And everybody's like, you gotta talk to John Bennett. And John's a very quiet guy, as you know.
Super.
He's covered in clay. It's kind of fantastic, but he's kind of a quiet guy, and he doesn't have a lot to say. But he was game. You know, I drew it on a cocktail napkin. I'm like, this is kind of what we're after. And he's like, I can do that. And I'm like, great. Well, let's start with a few. And he's like, I'll do 4. And then one of them cracked in the kiln. Yeah. And then we got 3. So it was kind of bittersweet, but you know, it was that kind of project where he builds them up from hand. Takes him all day to make one. We have some video on our website just kind of showing them. We went up there and filmed them.
It's pretty crazy because it's literally almost it's a single throw essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, he has this flamethrower, which I didn't know, but about halfway up he brings out this sort of big hot flame to start kind of drying it. Otherwise it would collapse on itself.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, he builds it all up just without any instruments. You know,
it takes like 8 months to dry out, air dry, because he's just so terrified about cracking them in the kiln. And it's something like
8 months, really? Does it take you that long?
No, we're a little bit further down the list, Brad.
We get him like that.
But yeah, no, he has like a pretty high rate of breakage as well. Like they're just so finicky. to try to get a mass of that amount of clay to actually dry out.
We talked to him about having gutsy lids. That was one of the prerogatives, was to make sure they were tough, because we knew that was going to be a lot of action with coverings or however we're going to cover them. That was going to be a heavy traffic zone. And we've only had one breakage, and it was me backing up into one in a forklift.
Was that the one that you put on Instagram?
Yes, bad day at the office.
That was terrible.
Can't always show the victories on Instagram, guys. You gotta sometimes just show you fucked up bad, and it was brutal. So we had one earlier when we first made them in our carport, and it was hot in the carport, and one of them went completely bacterial. And that one we knocked over in the vineyard, and it was like this sea of gold that fell out of the pot. But it was also like a gangland murder. And that also was brutal to admit that, but it was such a beautiful shot. I'm like, how am I ever I gotta show someone this, So they are a little finicky, but it's been, and initially we were quite guarded about it, because I felt like this is like my IP, I've done a lot of work on this. Yeah. And then it was just like, you know what, let's just tell everybody about it. And now he's got a whole kind of new revenue stream. He sends the pots to all over Australia, New Zealand, Tassie.
Yeah, he's been sending them overseas,
So he's got like a whole new side project where he's making for lots of people, even just amateur makers and things like that. And we've just been upfront about how we make the wines, and say this is how we do it. There's no great secret to it. We're just fermenting grapes. But that whole process of making wine in amphora was my thing. Just to dial it back a little bit, it's kind of funny because at that stage we had Shiraz and Cabernet in our vineyard, and that was being made by Tim Geddes, who was a local winemaker for Nicole. And Nicole had her own wine label called Thorpe Wines, and because she's obviously, Nicole, my partner, is born and raised, she's an Aussie, and she's lived in McLaren Vale forever. I came over in 2007. And so she'd already had a fully formed life. She'd had kids that were through college, and this vineyard that was stunning. And she allowed me to take out a block of Shiraz and put in Nero, which shows true love or true stupidity or something.
But why Nero?
Wow, this was the deal, right? Because we had 7, 8, and 9 vintages, which were all drought years. Those are my first 3 years here. And we had a vintage, I think it was 08, where we had to turn off the Cabernet water completely because it just wasn't worth it. The vines had already shut down. And again, Steve Panel's name always comes up, but I was having a chat with him and an MW candidate, I forget her name, Elisa Kwan, if you're out there. And he was, very quickly talking about, we need to start thinking about Cinsault, Carignan, things that are a little bit more drought hardy and tough, and Nero d'Avola. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And then I found out Nero had just been cleared from quarantine. And like the bells and whistles were flying, and I was like, this is amazing. I've just got in town. I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing, but there's a chance we might be able to find a really cool new grape for this region. And no one had done it. There'd been a little bit, Cage Amadio had some up here that was virusy.
And that took, we very quickly realized that when you're grafting or top working Nero, you need to be really, really careful with it. You need to get both things. I think was it Rosemount that committed pretty hardcore to the Nero cause and ended up getting a lot of, but it wasn't so, I don't think it was from I think it picks up on virus, it doesn't have virus in it or something, I'm not too sure what
They did a lot of work and they lost a lot of vines. So compatibility checks, the clones are important. There's only one clone that we work with that came in, the Matura 1 clone.
I think there's only still one in Australia at the moment, is it?
I don't know, I heard Ashley mentioning something else, but maybe he was talking about a different grape when he was on. But either way, it works. So, and I don't think about clonal variation. It's something like Nero, we're really looking for that hardiness. It's not like a finesse grape like Pinot sometimes where you want, or Chardonnay where you can really talk about the clonal.
It doesn't look like a very nice vineyard. Not yours, I haven't actually been to your vineyard, but no, it's like we're getting real. No, but Nero, you go past, Pinot vineyard, you go past Syrah vineyard, you go past these things, they're really sort of quite tailored. And you go past Nero, and it's just, oh yeah, man, it's just freaking everywhere. It's like the Bob Marley of grapevines.
I love it. The rustling,
with massive basil leaves. Huge, awesome.
Especially as a young vine too, that's all cattywampus. It's got the big this and big bunches. Now our vineyard's about 10 years old. And it's taken on that old rootstock of the Shiraz, and it's got these real gnarly kind of old vine vibe to it, which is already kind of amazing. Like, wow, did we do that? So anyways, all that stuff. Finding amphora and everything else was what really got me into the winemaking side of things. I've drunk plenty of wine in New York when I was working in restaurants, and did sommelier work in New York, and was pretty confident on the other side of the table. But being on the other side, going through the science and the fermentation and all that process was all learned through Nero. And that was all done through the amphora, because nobody in McLaren Vale knew anything about it.
Yeah, so you're flying blind, essentially.
Yeah, I could talk to someone like, maybe I could have probably given James Erskine a call, but I was kind of in awe of those guys. I was like, they're crazy, I love them, but they'll never talk to me. They're superstars, and they're running around in their hot shorts. And,
yeah, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you're like
But I really didn't approach them. I thought they'd be not interested at all. And I was like, oh, well, maybe now looking back at it, knowing how nice they are, I'd be like, I would love to have a chat.
Amazing people,
But that's what, got me saying, well, let's just make wines this way. Let's strip it down. I'm not going to add shit to it that I don't need to add to it, and I don't know how to add to it. I don't want to add to it. So, anything that you'd find at a conventional winery was not in my shed. It was literally, like a jug, another jug, things like that. And it was really simple. A bucket.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we started making the wines. And I still use that information to sort of make wines now. That's still how I think about it. Skin contact or not skin contact, but it's all about just getting the good material, letting it kind of work itself out. Don't panic. It's going to be okay. The She'll Be Right thing from Australia has really gotten me. I say it all the time now. People are like, shut up, it's not okay. No, it's fine.
Jumping straight to the comments, because you got tons of love around these parts, mate. Sean Lau chiming in. Brad's, good to see you. Yuko and Christina, thanks for chiming in again. Oliver Parrish from Otto up in Brisbane.
Hey, Oliver.
Hey, Brendan and Brad, how you guys going? I'm going very well. Andrew Cameron. Mandry Macaroon, he also has an alter ego. Sam Leg of Lamb, which I just think is the best alter ego ever. Still on my mid-afternoon iced latte. People drinking Sydney Water, Hawks Patio, Pale Ale, River San Fiano, thank you. Cheeky 09 Suave Classico, not too bad. Lockie George, 2015 Brash H Merlot.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lachlan. Brown knows you. I'm getting him some bottles, so he's juicing me up.
Asomos Blanquito, Arnaz Garganaga and Vidello, very cool. Cheers from Idlewild. Stop by sometime for a break when all this is over.
Yeah.
We will, I assure you we will. Amanda Olivia, my bad.
Well, I used to call Olivia Amanda a lot. She's like, what? Olivia Amanda.
Ludda Neb is next level. I totally agree with that. Ludda Neb is one of the best out there. And Nebbiolo is one of those really interesting grape varieties where, a little bit like Syrah, and Sangiovese, we've been saying for a long time has enormous potential in this country, but you think after 40 years you would have figured it out.
Don't you also feel like those are grapes that are kind of, just leave them where they are? I think like stuff like that, I have like UNESCO, these are really seriously well suited for that region. Do we really need to?
Totally, and that's the Pinot argument as well.
Or Nerello Mascalese, that's another one that people are like, we gotta get
No one has managed to make great Nerello outside of it.
No, I haven't seen it outside of that now. And I know the Italians, I remember being at one of those alternative wine shows, and the topic was Nero d'Avola. And everybody had questions about Nerello Mascalese because Diego Planeta was there from Sicily.
Yes.
And he's like, listen, Australia, mark my words, he says, you can do whatever you want with the Nero. So leave the Nerello Mascalese to us. And I was like, okay.
But it's interesting, like,
it's a good idea.
A lot of these, what we found on things like Nebbiolo is that it needs calcareous soil, like, basil and tomato go together. Yeah. And we don't have a lot of calcareous soil with that sort of structure.
No.
And locally around here, indeed, like the Arrivo vineyard and the Panel vineyard now, it is actually now formally owned by Panel.
Yep. Formerly.
It is now owned by Steve. Officially owned. But that all actually surrounds a talc deposit, a really, really particular talc deposit. You want to try this, Law?
Someone else help me out. I'm sucking this bottle down like. Sorry, Nicole. Sorry, man. I'll call an Uber. It'll be fine.
But that's all around this really particular talc. It's an open cut talc mine, basically, and there's all these sort of calcareous deposits around that particular hill, and that gives something to Nebbiolo. Whilst you also need to be looking towards climatic things, there is something particularly about I think Nebbiolo, Sangiovese as well. that just, it thrives. And we've seen Pinot Noir
But
actually
fog,
trend.
you know, this is kind of foggy up here, right? You get
Oh man, this morning it was. You could barely see sort of, you know, a couple of meters in front of you. It was
which is
pretty
nice
gnarly.
for Nebbiolo to get that kind of little bit of moist, a little cool.
But it's just, I mean, yeah, but then you've got the opposite end of the spectrum. So during the middle of the ripening season when it's 47 degrees and it's for 4 or 5 days on end, I've been a Barolo quite a fair few times. It's never been 47 degrees, that's for sure, with no water. So it is one of those interesting things. Nerolos are a really interesting one where they haven't actually, I think they've got it in the States. They don't really do much with it. Menthea is another really interesting. I'm yet to see the great Australian. I know there's been some really good attempts at it, but I'm yet to see sort of like the aha wine that makes me go, holy crap, Menthea is the way forward.
Yeah.
Whereas it was your Nero, one of your original Neros. I think it could have been maybe 2010, 2012. I think 2012.
11 was the first one during that lovely, cool, wet year. That was the best year to have a sun-loving Mediterranean variety on your vineyard. We're like, hi, wait.
All the grapes ended up looking like little polar bears. Hey, some amazing Cabernet though in 2011. Some amazing Cabernet. Cranberry Cabernet.
I spent all of May chasing the birds off the vineyard, like with an esky full of Coopers, you know, and a sword, like just like a crazy baron running up and down 15 vines, going, "Get off the vineyard, you birds!" Until then, I kind of like birds until then. These things are evil.
Max Mason chiming in. What up, BH and BC? Good to see you boys out hanging out. Lovely to see you too, mate. Lockie George, do you line the amphora with wax or other substances?
Peanut butter. No, I'm joking. Sorry.
So nutty.
Getting a little loose up here.
So nutty.
I'll talk to you about that on the side, maybe, unless somebody else really wants to know. No, we line with beeswax, and it sounded logical to me from the very beginning to not put my most precious grapes in a porous vessel. I learned later that if you fire terracotta at 1,000 degrees Celsius, it becomes ceramic, and then you don't need to line it, but John Bennett's kilns only get up to 550, and so it never quite seals.
Yeah.
So beeswax, we had friends that had bees, is all kind of a nice vibe. At the pottery studio, when the pots come out nice and hot, he just ladles in this warm wax.
And it all just sinks in. It's pretty
great.
amazing.
And so it goes inside the vessel, but it still leaves you the terracotta. So it's not like if you were to smother wax on stainless steel and it just sits there as a barrier, it actually goes inside the vessel, which is even cooler. So it gives you that sort of...
It's still very much a rough texture. Still very much rough texture.
But it's, I mean, like you can try to scrape it, and I don't know, I'm sure you guys have the same style, and it's just like, it doesn't come off, and you don't have to re-wax.
It's we haven't re-waxed once.
So it's hygienic, and it also helps oxygen it, you know, from leaving and coming in, and just, it makes sense.
That's a really, really, really interesting observation that we didn't learn until we started, you know, having issues in our own cellar as we started to grow, and we couldn't pay attention enough to everything as we should. And we noted one of the wines that we have that's on skins for a really long time in amphora, and has no additions of sulfur of any kind, and it had the least amount of dissolved oxygen of all of our wines, including the ones that were made overtly conventionally.
Right.
And we sort of, the mind boggled as to how that could possibly have happened, because it had sat ullaged.
Under skins with it, the whole
So
thing?
skins with it, and we just had some that, it's like, you know, mastiche, which is like a mastic, and we just kind of put a stainless steel lid on, clamped it on.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And yeah, sure enough, you know, pull it off, and there was like a veil over it. We sort of drained the wine off, put it in bottle and whatnot, and even after all that whole thing, it had, you know, quite remarkably low levels of dissolved oxygen.
Which means what to the normal person?
Well, I mean, it means, it shouldn't mean, this is the thing, it's like I'm a super geek, so we're obviously concerned about dissolved oxygen because that's the thing that actually sends wine off over time, and it had a remarkable high level of dissolved carbon dioxide, which displaces oxygen that can hold a wine together. And of course, if you're trying to make wine with the least amount of sulfur as possible, there's a couple of things that you want to be paying attention to. Obviously, dissolved oxygen is one of them, pH, acidity is another, that allows little bits of sulfur to be very, very effective. Yeah, it's interesting that a wine that is completely and overtly exposed to oxygen for a long period of time happens to not actually have that much inside the wine. And perhaps it's something to do with the roughness. We thought it was roughness of the surface, like there's what we call nucleation points, or points where CO2 sort of hold onto, and then during the springtime starts to release its protection for the wine.
That's really interesting. I wonder what that would be in this wine. I know with bloom in my wines, I never even look at that category in the analysis, so maybe I should start paying more attention to it. I'm like, this is really good. I like this. I'm really happy with this. You know,
this is amazing wine though.
But I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, the last thing you want is the bottle to go off somewhere else. You know, so you want the wines to enter the world with a good chance to succeed, you know.
Yeah,
So
sort of like children. I mean,
yeah, and I know. I mean, Owen does. This does. He told me it has about 30 parts sulfur at bottling, so he's giving it a little bit of protection before it goes out. But wow, just opening up even
luscious,
more and more.
Super luscious. It feels like Chardonnay now.
What was that wine, by the way, you made? Is that still currently in the range? Is that a
It is,
Fiona?
yeah. Dreamer's Creed. Yeah.
Dreamer's Creed.
Yeah.
That's a good name for it.
Yeah,
Sounds like a boxer.
It was a bit like that. I was thinking about that.
These are dangerous wines. These are wines that you gotta have a bit of balls to make.
Hairy wines. Like Hungarian levels of hairy. Zachary
Hairy
Phelps.
to taste. I was talking more like gutsy to make them, not like the way they actually taste.
Yeah, well, that's I wouldn't describe Laura as gutsy. More like finessed, elegant.
We haven't really met.
But there's a yin to a yang, of course. Is making an amphora a relatively simple process, or is there a lot of maths and measurements involved in getting the shape right?
No, the potter, literally, if you go to brashhiggins.com and watch this video, it's amazing because he does them all without any measurements. He does them all just by feel. And it's frustrating if you're trying to build lids because each one has a different diameter. They're all roughly 200 liters, but he doesn't use any measurement. The guy just goes, and he's, when we first asked him, "Are you the guy to do this job?" He says, "Yeah, I'm the guy. I've been doing this for like 40 years. I'm
Seriously?
5th generation.
Yeah.
You picked the right guy."
And he literally makes the clay there.
Yeah, he's got a pug mill that comes out. He's using clay from all over South Australia, all over the place, and he's just kind of like, that's where people are like, you should really just use the clay from your own vineyard. And I was like, dude, I'm not gonna fuck with this guy's clay recipe. It's like here, Stephen Terhorst, take some chocolate I grew or made, and fucking make me some. You'd be like, go die. And so you gotta give people a little bit. Like, come on, we got pretty close.
Yeah, honestly, it's yeah, and that's probably one of the really cool things about those amphora as well, because there's tons now that are imported, but
there's frilly sort of Tuscan vibe to it, or little spigots on the bottom.
And I think it takes away. There is that inherent belief of having a wine that's in touch with something that's of the earth as well. And I think that's the really cool.
Well, those wines are warm and pretty, and that's a good way to describe. That's the style of wine I love to drink. We were looking at heavy Italian wines in small oak barrels and things like Sangiovese, and you're talking Nebbiolo. If you put them in oak, they lose all that charm.
Yeah, correct.
But you have to be a little bit more or less Shiraz drinker and more open to that, because your audience as a young winemaker is a lot of people that like a rich, sweet style. As an Australian winemaker, that was my biggest obstacle, was how am I going to get around that? Because I don't really want to drink that, and if I go under, I'm going to be stuck with all this. So we might as well make the wines that we want to drink.
Totally.
And Nero and Grenache Mataro, those two wines were the first two wines to say, let's make a lighter Grenache, add a little bit of Mataro at the same time, give it a little bit of, little savoriness. Let's do Nero, but we'll pick it around 12.5, 13. Keep it fresh. We don't want to make Nero like Amarone. You can. You can hang it out for years.
Yeah, and quite often they do that in Sicily now, obviously with an established market in the States with sort of big, rich, sort of dense wines.
Yeah,
they seem to have gone bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sicily has it all too, because they don't have Shiraz. So they're like, let's make Nero with Cabernet. Let's throw some gum in there. I don't know. Let's do whatever. But
well, we're half an hour in, and you've got a bonus blind tasting wine.
Do you want to get into that? First of all, can I just take one moment? I just want to present a gift to you before I forget, to you and Laura.
Oh dear.
It's nothing, no commitments. I'm not giving you our dog to look at.
I was like, that'll be fine.
These are our kids who are going on holiday.
That's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
So this is a tawny port that we make with my friend Stephen Matthews.
Is this the one in the barrel?
Yeah.
That barrel?
There's two barrels. And I thought you'd get off on this too, because you guys do spirits. We found, and we're talking about vessels and amphoras and all that jazz. So this is from 2 Macallan whiskey barrels that my friend Stephen, back in 1975, back in the day, you could order barrels from Scotland and Macallan would make them. Like, oh yeah, sure, give us the cash and we'll call you in 25 years. You're like, oh, okay. And they called him in 2000, said, your whiskey's ready, where do we send it? And he's like, shit, I forgot about it. And so,
for real?
I'm sure he didn't forget about it, but either way, Macallan sends these 2 beautiful Oloroso sherry barrels, which is what they used to use. I'm not sure what they use now, but the big Spanish fortified barrels.
Yeah.
To Adelaide. And at that time, Stephen was the publican at the Earl of Zetland, which is a very famous whiskey bar, which I think has long since shuttered its doors. I don't know if you've heard of the Earl of Zetland. legendary place, but it had an enormous whiskey collection, and these guys were badass, and they had the power to buy these kind of barrels and make this stuff happen. And so the whiskey was exhumed, delicious, sold, sure. I hear it's amazing. There's probably one bottle kicking around, but the empty barrels were just sitting there, and Stephen, in his ultimate wisdom, said, anybody want these? And they're like, no. And he's like, I'm gonna fill them with really good, young, fresh Tawny port. And he went to a really, really reliable source. I can't tell you who that is, but filled them up. And then he put them in his shed in North Adelaide, a little town of Puraka. And they've been in his garden shed, and now the shed's grown over it. He can't get these barrels out if he wanted to. And he showed this port to me. In 2009, we did the Kokoda track together, and we became good mates, you know, comrades and all that thing.
How was it, Kokoda? Was it good?
It was heavy.
I've heard.
It was intense, but I was, you know, it was, you know, long drops can get you down. And we had somebody die on the first day of our trip too, which was even more brutal. It was during that phase of the Kokoda where people were dropping, and we're like, oh, no, that's. Anyway, so long story short, we got to know each other really well, and so this
so cool.
port he showed me a couple of years later, and I'm like, oh, all right, here we go, Old Mate's port. You know, I'm gonna pretend to like it, and I was like, damn, man, that is beautiful. And so he gave me a 2-liter Coke bottle to take home to share with Nicole. And I kid you not, I drank it that night. And Nicole was like, where's the port? I'm like, oh. I knocked it over. But it was that beautiful because it had taken on all those sort of malty whiskey characteristics of the barrels. It had been sitting literally in the hot shed, cold shed for 15 years, ultimate conditions. So I was like, we got to do something together with this. So we started doing our own Solera at Brash Higgins, and then, you know, sending up little bits of wine. We'd take out 50 liters out of his mother, rotate it over.
Yeah.
And so we only do about 100 bottles of it every year.
It's bottle number 83 for reference.
I did look for number 30. I guess all the older people are dying, so like 83 used to be popular. Now it's all the 20s. So anyways, that's for you guys to try it. And I thought you'd enjoy it.
Oh no, I sure. We actually don't have any fortified at home, so it's like I was actually, because it's starting to get really cold, and it's one of those really amazing things to have a really good fortified.
It's nice because it's not too bombastic, you know. So, oh, is that a word?
It is.
Shit. Do we get to drink? I must be watching. Hey Terry, what's up, man?
This is why he's immensely more cool than me. Mate, thank you so much. All right, so, no, Christina, it is an amazingly sexy bottle, and yes, there is something about the bombastic nature of fortifieds that I absolutely adore, especially during winter, especially in places that get winter, like Adelaide gets winter. You know, Tassie gets winter. Melbourne sort of gets winter.
Cool. I thought you guys like it. And it looks good on the table here.
I think.
So if you just leave it there for. And when you do empty, you can just fill it with coffee and leave it there.
Terry's chimed in. Hey, drink. Hey, dude. I think Terry very much values that. All right, are we jumping to our next cheeky blind taster? Oh. All right.
Good, I'm glad I got that done. I would have kicked myself. I was driving home like, the port! That's all I wanted to do.
Good.
And talk about Nicole. Nicole! Oh, and by the way, I need to say hi to Max Mason. Max, the Sequoia Lodge is banging.
Yeah.
We've got it. Have you been there yet?
No, I was
Holy
hoping.
smokes.
We tried to, didn't we? We tried booking in, but
This thing got in the way?
no. What did get in the way? Bushfires.
Oh, yeah.
Was it bushfires?
It's not one thing, it's another.
It was drought, bushfires. They're calling it black summer, but you know what? Summer's over, and we're gonna get drunk. Anyway, I'm gonna be putting down the comments. We have 20 minutes. All right, let's move on to the next one. Jumping on a little bit of cheeky blind tasting. Oh, hello. That's fun.
How are you?
That's very fun. This is very familiar to me.
Okay, good. Do you guys have some? Do you want some? Do we wait? Is that a waiting thing?
Damn.
These glasses are too small, aren't they? It's almost like, not that I want to drink it, I'm just saying that you can't get your nose in there. Yeah, you do have like hands like Chopin.
Incredible wine. really good. It's super young. Seriously, this could go on and on and on and on.
It's got this kind of nice sort of, right now, this kind of grilled onion.
Yeah, I mean, just the blue fruit of this particular grape variety when it's just merged with a decent wallop of Slovenian oak, and not oaky, because it's not. There is something to do with the oxidative nature of this particular grape variety. Have I told you about the power move?
I'm ready.
So the power move is basically if I smell it, taste it. I don't even know anything about this wine.
Have I told you about the sucker pitch?
Yeah, what's that?
That's when I throw you the power move.
Yeah.
And I step away.
Yeah.
Cue the band.
I mean, pretty classic Nebbiolo. I'm interested to know whether it will be Old World or New World, because this could well be an amazing example of New World Nebbiolo. But I actually think it's that good, and this is the thing about these great varieties, how you're like, we should just leave them there, because you're always going to be compared to, and we do such a different style of Nero in Australia as they're doing in Sicily, that you're kind of not compared so much to the Nero of Sicily. But Nebbiolo, amazing tannin, a fair degree of maturation. I think it's an amazing single site Barolo. Actually, I lie, it's Barbaresco. That's the thing. It's just the fruit weight is just quite. It's not so rich. It's not so generous as you would typically see out of Barolo. And if it is Barolo, it's La Morra. It's sandier based soils. But
the fruit weight's lighter.
The fruit weight I feel is lighter than what would typically come from
Barolo is usually more machismo. Barbaresco's a little bit more sort of
elegant. Yeah, we try to. Exactly.
A little bit more, whatever. If you want to find another, but I know what you mean. Yeah, more feminine, masculine.
And typically, like if we peak a little bit earlier inside Australia, it's just the fruit rice. So that's why I'm like, that's where I immediately am at. I don't think I could pinpoint a producer, but if it's going to be, it's probably going to be like La Morra, Auvergne, Bruca delle Viole, GD Vira, or it's going to be something really cool and natty out of Barbaresco. Who's the really cool dude out of Barbaresco that does the really cool?
Wait, was that a pick that was like 5 or 6 different producers?
No.
Let's narrow it down.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So none of those.
It's red wines.
None of those producers. You're right. You're in the totally right commune.
Yeah, cool.
Bingo.
Right. Yeah.
Huge bells and whistles. Is there a kind of graphic for he got it?
No. It's one of those things because the wine is so giving of that, so expressive of that. And I drink a lot of Nebbiolo.
Yep. I know you do.
Old World. Can we tick off some boxes?
Okay.
Old World Italian Nebbiolo.
No, you got the power move. We don't have to do that. We just go right in, don't we?
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay, now the only thing left is the producer and the vintage. So, of course, it's always interesting with Nebbiolo. I had just a sidebar, I had a 97 Vira, which you never quite know. But that wine had the most sort of elastic tannins. It was dry, but these tannins were actually like gluten. They were just kind of like all over. I had a 12 Vira a couple of nights ago, and it was amazing, but it was like walking into a brick wall.
Yeah.
And so the time frame, you're right, is so important to elongate those tannins so they're actually approachable. People don't talk about feathery Nebbiolo tannins, do they? They talk about, like...
Unless it's a 2014 vintage. Unless it's like a really, really wet vintage.
But
like
most of the time they're pretty...
Oh, yeah. Oh, they are dense.
Okay.
Like it's like the difference between, cutting creme fraiche and cutting, cheese. Like, that's the way I sort of see it. Like, there is a density and a power and a weight and a resistance.
Yeah, see, there's a beautiful terminology. I love it.
I just, use other food.
No, but wine is all about descriptors and how do you describe flavors? It's hard, you have to use some sort of thing.
Oh my God, there was a revelation that happened. Was it last night? I think? Or was it the night before when we were doing the sausage sizzle tasting? Speaking of which, we need to do junk food wine in a second. But no,
is there more of that wine over there?
Yeah, because this is. Well, should we just yeah.
Just you picked
Most. Oh, that's interesting.
That's Noah's hand. Everybody, hand model of the future.
It's one of my many jobs that I've had in this place.
Hand model. You'd think old Chopin hands here would be the hand model. He's a piano player. It's not chopping.
So have you? Well, quick segue.
Yeah.
Junk food wine.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any dietaries?
No.
Cool. So we have been pairing wines or pontificating regarding wines. We'll leave this in front of people so they can see what this says. With the food that maybe some people have in their pantry. So tonight we are on prawn crackers. We've done shakes, we've done Doritos, we've done Pringles, 2 different types of twisties. But tonight we get the lovely prawn cracker. Gewürztraminer. Wait, did someone actually chime in with that, or is that Laura? Is that that's your personal call? Gewürztraminer and prawn crackers. I think there is some ASMR level shit when it comes to eating prawn crackers.
Is this made by an Australian company? Cuckoo?
Cuckoo?
Or are these international?
Cuckoo! No, it contains gluten. Laura can't have it, sorry.
I have a cupcake for you.
It's made in Indonesia. Oh, legitimately, he's got gluten-free cupcakes. He brought gluten-free cupcakes.
Nicole made some cupcakes for you. In fact, that might be another tasting with the port one day when you guys be there tonight. Draw a bath, put some cupcakes in the air. I like the international.
I throw cupcakes in the air all the time.
I like the.
All right.
Back to the vintage. So, are we looking at? Geez, you know, Barolo, Barbaresco, 2005, 2001, or 1990, your birth year. It was 90, right? What a cracker of a year to be born, by the way.
It was a really good year to be born.
You're going to buy the most expensive wines the rest of your life.
I know, right?
You're better off being born in a clunker vintage, which sometimes surprise you than like one of the greatest vintages.
But you can at least afford to buy the wines. That's the thing. Like,
you're like, I can drink the Langy 1990.
do you remember when, what was that, Print Hall opened up in WA and they had the 1990 page?
Yep.
That was the most, to date, the most baller page I've seen on any restaurant list ever.
Place had some balls.
Man, if it's 1990, I'll be pretty surprised to say it's 2005.
2001.
Oh, wow.
So again, it's from a vineyard that's fairly austere and quite lean. It's quite a lower vineyard in Barbaresco along the river called Poro.
Okay. It's not Finocchio.
No, but who's another famous producer that makes
Poro?
Poro? And another? More of a cooperative, communal.
Yeah, totally. Produttori del Barbaresco.
There you go. One of the most historical cooperatives, and one of the most fascinating cooperatives. I learned that they don't allow the growers to keep any fruit, because a lot of growers in a cooperative will keep the good fruit for themselves and send the kind of D-grade stuff to the cooperative. And in this area, they're very, very tight about it because it's been World War I, World War II, Depression. Let's bring Barolo, Barbaresco back up to the forefront. So that's
thank you so much.
01 pour up.
16,000 bottles, mate. So this is like literally like 20 ton of this, and that's it.
Yeah, we've got the rest of it, I think.
That is insane.
Recently.
That is insane. I'm glad I called Barbaresco. So I was like, oh man, it smells like pure Barolo. This is just not the weight of that. That is pretty cool.
No, you could have gone so wrong with that, and that would have been horrible. So you've really,
I've actually gone so wrong with that so many days in a row. Like, it's good to actually get like one under my belt. It's actually kind of nice.
You could have gone like California's Infidel, and I'd be like, this guy.
yeah.
I never
White
this
Infidel.
This guy is a fraud. No, you did a good job. And I was, believe me, Nicole will know that I was wrestling with what to bring. But I wanted to give you one, and I wanted to share a glass of wine with you that I thought we'd both enjoy. That wasn't from, you know, Antarctica, but was somewhere that you love for your birthday. And I love, and that we have an older Barbaresco too is quite a special thing, especially when they're kind of singing. And this wine will be better in a couple of hours even.
I agree.
I double decanted that before I left at 1 o'clock.
Oh really? It
We
smells
gotta make
amazing.
Occasionally get some faulty corks in these wines, so you got to kind of navigate that. But, and I've got some good buying friends now that we kind of get involved in, like, you know, Teccasolino and some of these sort of things. Like, hey, everybody. They're all winemakers, of course, but...
I know, I mean, I never got the invite. You know, I never got the call.
No, it's going to happen.
So this is... She's the winemaker, that's right. That's why she got the invite, not me.
She didn't get the invite. That would be wrong. But I will give you an invite. So this is the first time I've been to Unicozello, and I just, you know, thought we should have something special.
Oh, mate, thank
Next
you.
time I'll bring you something from Czechoslovakia, industrial district.
India.
But even though this is...
Next time I'll bring you some leaves from my barrel and say, what is this?
You see that?
No,
Did you see that? Yeah, you totally saw that.
I turned it off.
Dude, that was pretty funny.
Oh.
I was like, you're never gonna get this. Like, of course I'm not, because it's literally the lees from every wine made that vintage. Like,
That is cruel.
come on, Aaron Fenwick.
That is cruel.
We
Aaron
love
Fenwick.
you. We love you. It was good. It was good and fun, irrespective. Now, this is the big, most important question that determines the next big drink. Does this wine have big label energy or not? It is old school. It has been around for ages. It is a single vineyard Barbaresco aged. Is this a power move to go up against the Gutogals of the world in power moves of big label energy?
Those guys.
I'm making the call that this is most certainly big label energy.
Yes. Ching. They
There's
gotta
definitely-
like wineries that have gone through world wars and like
Yeah.
struggled and like have this massive thing of like these little vineyards, we're gonna protect them, and then make Grand Cru sites out of them. You guys were talking about appellations earlier. I think I saw some program where you're talking about appellation systems. Like, you gotta get your head around your best vineyards before you even start talking about that. Because imagine the fight that's gonna happen if I've got Hill of Grace and you tell me that you can't be part of Eden Valley because you do something differently. You're gonna be like, well, forget it, we're now Hill of Grace Valley. And everybody's gonna be like, wait, come back. So, you know,
But we don't know enough about
we don't. We're still
like
babies.
our climates. We don't know enough about our soils, nor do we actually, to be honest, care.
I
Because we
care.
can utilize. I know, and we care.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Of course,
Who
but
doesn't
like,
care?
but well, the vast majority of the industry, where you know, at the end of the day, you know, they're interested more so in what is commercially available now than
True.
and shortening that time to market, which is also a very legitimate thing. I think that is who would argue against good business, but. It's about obviously the longevity of it, isn't it? Like, I want to be doing great business in 20, 30, 40 years time. I don't just want to be doing it now, and it's that longer scope.
Yeah, it's agriculture.
And it works in cycles, and that's why, you know, we like to, even every staff member that comes here, we talk more about how we see ourselves as an adjunct to farming, like evaluating to farming, as opposed to a brand.
Yeah.
And inherently, okay, this is me with the branding shit going on like crazy.
Yep.
That's the market response side of things. But when it comes to looking at sort of more accurate varieties, and a really great example of this is we have our own little cooperative, Harvest.
Yeah.
And that's because that came about for a fundamental reason that you actually just pointed out, and actually really, really important. When grapes in Australia get deemed not worthy for wine production, and they can be deemed not worthy for wine production for many, many reasons, which are nefarious quite often.
Yeah.
Like less, you know, more than 5% MOG matter other than grapes, no bueno. You know, the slightest amount of disease that they're scared, what we call the grower liaison officer, the GLO is afraid to be able to bring into the big winery. That doesn't get made into wine. It just sits on.
On
Oh, we're back.
saying that he would not take over the world. Okay.
No, we got 5 minutes. That's all good. Again, my fancy brand new camera actually needs to be plugged into the wall outlet. If we know that of the best vineyards in the world, right? The best vineyards are always going to yield amazing wines, and you know, in bad vintages.
Yep, that's how they do become the best vineyards. I mean, that's how they know Clos de la Roche is going to be good no matter what.
No matter what, and it's going to be superior. Now, if we aren't making wine consistently from every single vineyard all the time without fail, then how are we ever actually going to identify, especially during the bad vintages, how are we ever going to actually identify what our truly great sites are prior to the variety, prior to everything else? The truly great sites sometimes are just missed because of logistical annoyance.
I think Europeans are more tuned to skipping a generation, looking beyond their own immediate needs and thinking about their grandchildren. I know lots of Europeans that buy wines not for themselves or for their children, but for the grandkids. You know, you've got people buying first growth Bordeaux and not even touching them, but they just want to have them in the cellar for, you know, baby Huey who hasn't even been born yet.
Yeah.
Great short story. I was at Boulet restaurant where I used to work in New York, and very well known kind of fancy 3-star Michelin restaurant.
Amazing.
And Chef Boulet asked me, he's like, it's my 50th birthday. He told me the day before on a weekend where there was a holiday. He's like, it's my 50th birthday, Brad. I'm inviting some friends, and I want you to get me all the first growth Bordeaux from 1955. And he's like, and I want them in magnums. And I was like, anything else, chef? You know, like a sock? And he's like, yeah, if you get some Latoche, you know, some good vintage 78 Latoche or something like that to start a speed bump. I was like, oh, Latoche speed bump, all right. And I just walked around going, this is fantastic. I'm not paid enough for this, but I'm going to try. And New York City, the place it was, I tried a few options. In walked one of our regulars, Dr. Harry Snady, very well-known brain surgeon. And he always brought in nice older Bordeaux. And I said, doctor, do you happen to by chance have any first growths? He's like, oh, I've got all the magnums from 55. And I was like, ah.
Seriously?
I'm like, welcome to your lifetime membership to Belay Dining. And so he brought him in, and he, of course, I'm like, Chef, Harry Snady is part of the dinner. He's like, I don't like Harry. No, I'm like, no, Chef, he really has to be part of this. He's like, oh, okay. No, I'm serious. I know he liked you, Dr. Snady, if you're out there. But, that kind of vision, though, is something we lose track of because you're trying to stay alive. So, like, maybe, you know, your kids or, you know, you can start thinking about that. The whole idea is, to start developing those sites that are special. Yeah. And then work around that. Work around those, and then you can start talking about, you know. But I can't see that happening in our lifetime. Can you? Like any sort of, like regulation already is a dirty word. People are very kind of.
Yeah, look, if there was a regulation that I could definitely sort of, you know, put on my sleeve and champion, it would be the removal or imposition of no irrigation past 3 or 4 years. I know that sounds like, and because you're a grape grower, and obviously you obviously heavily rely on that sort of thing. For me, it's and
vineyards would die. Is that like part of the? Is that part of the? You know, do you have to accept that? It's part of the what's called collateral damage.
It's more so about identification.
My vineyard probably would struggle because we're on very shallow soil.
Totally.
So roots might not get deep enough to find their own moisture.
And that's the difference. It's the reconciliation between what is
harsh.
No, it's a reconciliation between what the market obviously wants and what it can accept, and obviously what the land can possibly give. And or at least a ratification that wouldn't allow the bundling of water for us to be able to buy it from the Riverland and then irrigate it in the Adelaide Hills, for example, which I think is a really sort of fundamentally sort of fucked up thing. But the ability for us to be able to quickly and rapidly identify the grape varieties or even the areas, the actual plots of land that can support a vineyard and not support a vineyard, and what variety. And I'd still believe that after seeing what we've seen in the Riverland, I mean, Nero should grow very well there, and a myriad of other grape varieties that or other viticultural methods or other things that we aren't under enough pressure to be able to actually identify. And that would of course provide. I mean, it would rip the band-aid, and it would be detrimental. I'm not saying do that, but
that's an interesting one. I mean, the other one will be probably no glyphosate. You know, that's
of course. That's again, you know, that's probably a very basic one we should probably think about doing. Again,
well, if you want to sell your wines into Europe and the US, they're going to be banning that stuff. So you're going to be like, well, you know, that's going to be the first question. I mean, in fact, I'm sure, you know, you've seen in the US, like, it's hard to get an appointment unless you're showing at least a modicum of sustainability, and you have to show something that you're caring. The big brands in the US are, you know, relegated to shopping centers and, you know, discount. So people are playing along with that, but I mean, that might be one that you might see very quickly.
For sure, and we've found a bit of solace with, and of course, McLaren Vale is actually very, very good on obviously sustainability credentials and whatnot, and they've actually been done.
But none of it's. I mean, none of it's really says that much. What's interesting about that, and this is, I know Arena Brown. I don't know how much time we have here.
A minute.
Oh well, I mean and she's a good friend, and that whole sustainability Australian wine growing program was such a gateway for us.
Entwine, wasn't it? Entwine.
And then it became South Australian Wine Growing, I think, because they wanted a more catchy acronym, which is perfect, SAW. So, and that was amazing because it gathered data on the district too.
SAWG? South Australian Wine Growing? SAWG?
Or the movie. Okay. But McLaren Vale is very green, and she was and her and Dudley were fantastic to give this program to McLaren Vale and all of Australia. I mean, imagine that gig. For a PhD, she was able to fly to all the wine regions, explore their sustainability programs, come back, and in her second language, write a PhD dissertation. She's from Brazil, so like, I mean, and then come up with this brilliant sort of concept of how to gather data and how to give people some sort of direction about best practices. You know, for us, we were like, we did that for the first 2 years. I'm like, shit, why don't we just go organic? We'll just do that. Even though organic's not the end all be all. It's, you know, obviously it's limited. But we're like, well, that's, at least you can say you're in a certification program and you are thoroughly fact-checked. You know, the idea. And so that became something that was important to us in our vineyard. you know, I can understand, you know, if you don't make wine from your vineyard, it's going to be harder because you can't really get that, you know, the value back. You know, you can't charge $30 a bottle if you're just selling grapes.
Yeah, exactly.
And people don't spend more on organic fruit than they do on commercial fruit.
No, but they do in wine though. They do in wine. Yeah.
In the shop.
Yeah,
that's
but
good.
not sort of for the grapes, which is actually quite unless you're operating on a stupid scale, unless you're operating on, you know.
But you don't see a lot of organic wines over $100.
Absolutely not.
But I mean, that's what we're talking
But
about.
there are many that are organic, but they don't talk about it.
Because they're afraid there's a backlash?
Perhaps I think there's probably more to do with brand than anything like, you know, their brand's more powerful than the organic staple would lend. But before we go, because we do have to go because Henry's about to chime in on Applewood as well. We're cutting into his time. I want to grab your sommelier brain.
Where's Henry?
Henry, he's in Melbourne. He's in
right.
Melbourne.
I'm at Applewood, and I don't.
Yeah, I know. Prawn crackers, does it go well with Barbaresco? I'm actually quite surprised with how well this actually pairs with tannic wine.
Yeah, it does. I think it does. It has a saltiness that kind of hits this pretty well.
Everyone's saying bubbles and pet nat. I think bubbles and pet nat is well. Do you have that other? Do you want to grab that glass there? I'll grab the big.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I want to do this, man. It's not my show.
No, you don't get the Barbaresco.
No, I'm drinking it.
No, you need acid for this because it's salty. So yeah, I think pet nat champagne.
So does it taste better with bubbles?
Champagne would be a real highbrow drink for prawn crackers. And it's like salt and vinegar chips and champagne. I'm
actually saying like something tannic would go, like this is one of the very few snack foods that I'm like, you know what, something stupidly tannic, like an Alianico, Nebbiolo, you know, or even like a really...
This is working.
It actually works really well.
I mean,
surprised.
this wine is dying for any food right now. I mean, if you give me a piece of wood or like I'm looking at my glass.
Just go outside and bite a tree.
I'm looking around like, is there anything here?
All right, we do need to wrap up. Brad, thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
You're welcome. Cheers.
And thank you for bringing so many amazing wines and amazing gifts and just being in general fucking awesome. See, you finally met him. Who else do you want to meet?
Sorry guys, I didn't get the
Are
name.
you not entertained?
I didn't get the name drop everybody. Sorry. I love you.
I love you too, guys. Catch you soon, same time tomorrow. 5 p.m, 5:30 if you're on the East Coast, and summer relevant time in WA if you're over there. Ciao.
Ciao, Bella.